that we will have a major vote on auditing the Fed in July of this year. It's going to pass, and I think we're going to have a lot of Democrats vote for it. You know, one time somebody asked me, who exactly are you running against? Well, who's an individual? Are you out to get Obama or just what? I said, I'm running against Keynes. This is true. Keynesianism has infected our society over the past 50 years, and unfortunately, a Republican president in the early 70s said, we're all Keynesians now, as if we finally have arrived. But I'll tell you what, my goal is to make sure that we're not all Keynesians anymore, and that we all believe in free market, sound money, and the Constitution. Away from Keynesianism, because Keynesianism is a modified version of central economic planning, and people think we could have this modification, reject the total free market, and reject total socialism, but total control through regulations and central banking is just as harmful and will bring the economy down. And that is what's happening to us today. It took a long time. We've lost 98% of the value of our currency since 1913 because of the Federal Reserve System. The major crisis that we even talked about back in the 70s, coming from the loss of the last vintage of our dollar to gold, that it would lead to the economic crisis we have today. And in the last 4 years, believe me, people are waking up. That is why we're getting attention on the Federal Reserve. We're in the transition. Keynesianism doesn't work. Communism, socialism didn't work. The great Austrian economist Mises predicted as early as 1912 that socialism would fail because it alters the important factor that you don't have a pricing structure. Under Keynesianism and under the system we have today, we don't have a pricing structure for interest rates, so that disrupts the economy. So it encourages the debt. We have a debt crisis, not in the United States, not just in our individual states, but worldwide. Greece is just a bare opening up of what is going to happen in many, many countries, and we're not much better off. We're just in a better shape because the people still trust our dollars. But the transition is occurring. Something will have to replace it. That is our job as conservatives and constitutionalists and free market people and people who believe in property rights, is we better have an alternative, because those who want to use force and power are up there. They're in Washington and they're anxious to go there. This is why the grassroots effort of making sure you send only individuals who honestly believe in something and understand the marketplace, because there will be a change. We will not be able to maintain this status quo. This debt cannot be maintained. I am convinced in economic terms that our country has been slipping for more than 10 years economically. No true jobs, jobs going overseas, explosion of debt, devaluation of the currency, and productive jobs going overseas with an explosion of debt which cannot be maintained. So that time is coming. We don't know when it'll come, but I do know we have our work cut out for us, but the answers are there. That's the great thing about it. And it's a great answer. It's a freedom answer. It's sound money. It's honest money, property rights, and it's individual liberty. And of course, what I put in the mix, and this I think is so important, is we need to address the subject of foreign policy. We cannot be the only policy of the Soviet system that brought them to their knees. Ironically, with an overextension into a country called Afghanistan. The first president I was able to vote for, I believe still was a very remarkable president. not perfect for my terms, but very, very good. He was a military man, and that was Eisenhower. Eisenhower was elected in 1952. Guess what he ran on? Stop the war. I'm going to go to Korea. I'm going to end the war that the Democrats had started. And he did. Within 8 months, the war ended. The other thing that Eisenhower did is he refused to take the advice of his advisors to use a nuclear weapon against the Chinese. He also went against his advisors who said, send in troops into Vietnam. And as a military man, he said that would be foolish. Unfortunately, that happened under the next administration. But also, I remember this so clearly, in 1956, when I thought, well, I remember World War II, the Korea War, I knew about the draft, and it seemed to be inevitable, and I always assumed that I would be drafted. Well, in 1956, there was a Suez crisis. And thank goodness, Eisenhower took care of that in a week. He said, I'm not going there. I'm not going to send troops in there. And the world didn't come to an end. The world only saved a lot of lives. One of the strongest suggestions I have here when you think about economics and balancing the budget and coming together, and 75 to 80% of the people now say we ought to come home from Afghanistan. But if you are a believer in government, you have to not believe in unlimited war. And today, we're in unlimited war. The wars are being planned. We're just waiting on the day that the troops will be there. The bombs continue to fall. We have drone wars going on constantly. We're wondering when we're going into Syria, when we're going into Iran. And we don't have the money, even if you want to go. You can't do it. We're flat out broke. And then one of these days, they're not going to loan us money. So this is an economic crisis. The American people, we have used this less military interventions often as Republican. Eisenhower did it, but also in the year 2000, our candidate argued the case for a humble foreign policy, no policing of the world, and no nation building. What's wrong with that foreign policy? I think that's the one we need. That the law changed not only by executive orders and some of the court cases, but also what Congress has done. It is established and understood and part of our culture and our law today that accepts the notion that our president can use the military to arrest American citizens. Arrest American citizens, that would be one thing bad enough using the military. But it is understood now by those in charge that they can be held in secret without an attorney. Indefinitely. That is not what America's all about. I'll tell you, it just is, and that has to be challenged. I think a little bit back about Texas history. You know, Mexico got their independence in 1821 from Spain. They wrote a pretty darn good constitution in 1824. And by 1832, there was some disruption in Texas, mainly near where I live. It was a little town called Velasco. And there was a battle in Velasco. Guess what they were fighting over? The Mexican military arrested 17 Texans, including William Travis, in a little town called Anahuac on Galveston Bay. And they were furious, mainly because the military arrested them and they were denied a civil trial. And they were going to be hauled off to Veracruz to be prosecuted. And that was the first fight, really, of the war for independence. So that was the issue that motivated our founders, the British. The soldiers came in, invaded their houses, and marched in and made arrests. So it's military control over civilians that prompted our revolutions, the Texas Revolution, and it's been legalized in this country. And I would say it's time to remove that and live up to the rule of law, the Fifth Amendment, the rule of law, and the free contract. Stated by some of the legal advisors to our current president that he has the authority not only to retain individual Americans that he suspects might be bad people, but he also claims that he has the right that if you've had a trial as an American citizen and you are found to be innocent, that they can still hold you in secret prison. People will say, yeah, but how many times does that happen? It only needs to be on the books and happen once or twice, and that's way too much. Yes. On a routine basis, our president has meetings with his legal advisors because they go over a kill list. Who's going to get killed without due process of law? It reminds me of what Roosevelt did. Roosevelt, I bet you could guess, was probably not my favorite president. But Roosevelt, of course, stole the gold from the American people, and then we stole the gold at $20 an ounce. What he did then was they were fixing the price of gold up so that it could inflate. So on a daily basis, Roosevelt, with some of his economic advisors, would sit around a table and decide what the price of gold would be. And but today, I thought that was pretty bad. But today, literally, they sit around and they pick a hit list. Some are American citizens that are on this hit list, but people all around the world. Oh, they're bad guys. They're terrorists. They want to kill us. They want to do these things. And they say, well, and we can do it in a sterile way. All we have to do is have a drone. Shoot them. Nobody's in danger. But guess what? Using drones to drop bombs and innocent people getting killed, no due process of law, guess what? It makes a lot of enemies for us. I think it's a foolish foreign policy. We have drifted a long way from the idea of due process of law. They've made fun of this process. The administration, when they have been quizzed on this, well, what about the Fifth Amendment? Aren't we supposed to have due process of law? And they said, well, we give due process of law. But we fulfill the obligation to have due process of law because 2 or 3 individuals in the White House sit around and they decide whether he's a really bad guy or not. The one thing to try to remember, whether it's here in this country or any place in the world, when you say, that guy is a bad guy, and we need to take care of him, he's still a suspect. He's still a suspect. He's not a terrorist, he's a suspect. So all around the world, we're deciding just willy-nilly who the terrorists are and who the suspects are. And I'll tell you what, it's going to give us more trouble than good. And that's where we are today. So this is the reason that we don't have to think that these ideas are coming from the far left. These ideas are traditional, they're conservative, they're constitutional, and they've been Republican in the past. I would like to say it's time for us to revitalize these ideas of the due process of law and never go